Good evening and welcome to the Lifeline on Equa TV Africa. This is a legal show that discusses legal issues and how it how it affects you on a daily basis. This evening we have in the studio we have Barrister Matthew Godfrey. You're welcome.
Good evening, viewers. My pleasure being here again.
And we have Barrister Stephen Ahili.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here today.
And I am Victoria Yamisi Olanio. I'm anchoring the program. This evening we're going to be talking about likely areas of reforms towards 2023 elections. We know the elections are all around the corner, and many activities gearing towards the 2023 elections are already on the way. And so we'll be looking at the electoral bills and the likely reforms that will come in. This is a call-in program, so the phone lines will be open at 6:30. You can call in to make your comments and contributions even on the show. And so we'll go ahead with our discussion, and when the time comes, you can call. Barrister Matthew, looking at the electoral reforms we are talking about, what are the innovations, in the electoral bill, 2022?
I think one of the eminent innovation that is reflected in this electoral bill 2020 is the issue of transmission of election result.
Okay.
Now, other one has to do with the issue of indirect and direct primaries. The issue of transmission of election result is of eminent and interest to Nigerians because Nigerians want to ensure that there is transparency and credibility in the electoral processes. So that's what makes it more interesting. And that of direct and indirect primaries, the issue now has to come with the experiences and attempt by political class to ensure that governors no longer abuse the internal democracy of most parties. If you can recall, what sparked the issue of direct primaries and indirect primaries in the bill was the experience in Zamfara,
Okay.
wherein a one-time governor intends to run the internal affairs of the party as his state activity, and without doing that, complying with the electoral act as the party's constitution. So that affected Zamfara state in 2019 election to an extent that the whole of Zamfara state, where the ruling party won, from the governorship down to the list officers were declared invalid because lack of respect for internal democracy. So that is an attempt that they want to ensure that it never repeats.
Okay. Barrister Ahili, do you have anything to add on that?
Yes, just to say that the issue of direct primaries is aimed at, like he said, ensuring internal democracy, dealing with godfatherism, where a few persons sit and people are gathered in a place in the name of a convention, and it's just a jamboree. At the end of the day, they return whosoever they want. Let me say this, perhaps some people may not understand what direct or indirect primaries is. Normally, in Nigeria, no party can contest any election without being sponsored by a political party. So, in the process of getting candidates by political parties is where they conduct primaries. That's election within the party to choose a candidate. Normally, a lot of candidates come out for different positions. You could have situations where sometimes in one or for one seat for the candidature of a particular party, you have more than 10 contenders. So the party has to get one candidate out of
The 10.
the 10,
Okay.
or more than 10. So they conduct an internal election. It is direct primaries where every card-carrying member of the party that is willing to participate is allowed to participate.
Okay.
They go and sit together and choose the candidate of their choice. It is indirect where delegates are elected, there are some persons that are statutory delegates by reason of the offices they are holding. For instance, party chairman of a state is an automatic delegate for whichever office, be it president, governor, senate, house of reps, or house of assembly. So long as he's part of a particular constituency.
Okay.
If he's part of that constituency, then he's automatically a delegate. So you get a delegate, and they go and meet as delegates, and they decide who becomes the candidate of the party.
Okay.
So where it is indirect primaries, where you have delegates election, it is easier to manipulate. But it is more difficult to manipulate where you are conducting this election maybe at polling units or at ward level. And in a state where you have over 100 or over 200 wards, it will not be easy for one governor to sit in one place and manipulate the entire process in all the wards.
Okay.
So that is what governors don't want. And when the president refused to assent the bill as was proposed to him last year, as was sent to him last year, even some of the governors that had never seen anything good in him for the first time saw something good and were commending him for refusing to assent to that bill.
Okay.
Whereas for some of us, including the House of Assembly, the National Assembly, which passed the Electoral Act, we felt it is castration of democracy.
Thank you very much. He just mentioned that the president hasn't assented to the bill, and some are praising him for it. What is the legal implication of that, Barrister Matthew?
Failure of the president to assent to the bill does not attract any legal sanction. It's his constitutional right to either assent or withdraw his assent. Now, however, the National Assembly can go further to veto his decision. But one other thing that I need to add also is that the signing of the bill will not be good to Nigerians unless the issue of that direct and indirect primaries are resolved. The germane innovation that Nigeria is interested in is the transmission of election results. Why is that so? It will help to address some of the anomalies we are having in our electoral jurisprudence. Remember 2019 election, on the countdown to the 2019 election, the chairman of INEC came and gave Nigerian confidence that they have functional server. It's air all over. But later on, when the presidential election petition was going on, that was denied. And in the case of Abubakar versus INEC 2020, it has become setting a precedent that we don't have server, you don't need server. So, but with the signing of that bill, that signature, that assent by the president will now override that bad judicial precedent, which now talks about less regard for electoral transmission of election result and the involvement of electronic election in our jurisprudence. Then the other thing is the cost implication of conducting an indirect. He has just gave a wonderful analysis. Imagine all PDP members, all APC members conducting election primaries in all the federal constituencies to determine who is there. Who is there? It's going to be cost effective. It's going to cost the party. It's going to be a lot of engagement that I think will not be smooth to the selling of our democracy. But give it another way, that if we have the direct control, take that direct and indirect controversy, leave it as it is in the Electoral Act, which specify that. Let people have options.
Okay.
Yes, I think that should be there.
Okay. Barrister Ahile, the issue of direct or indirect primaries, he is saying it should be left for the people to decide, not for there to be a reform. But I would like to ask, why will you think that the president would not want to sign this electoral bill?
Well,
knowing that, this would help our democracy. and it will move us a step further?
Well, the truth of the matter is that we are in a battlefield between the ruling class and the masses. Unfortunately, we the masses do not even know that we are in a battlefield. So we do not even know when it is our interests and when it is not our interests. The president gave reasons why he refused to assent to the bill last year. For this year, he hasn't given reasons, so it will not be right for me to preempt.
Okay.
The reasons that were given last year, to my mind, were not tenable. Talking about expense, talking about how did they say it? Something affecting smaller parties and all. I do not see how, if Mega PDP conducts its own direct primaries, Mega APC conducts its own direct primaries, and then a party like ADC that is small is conducting its own primaries, how the mega nature of APC will affect the small party is what I do not know. They don't have the same members.
Structures.
The members of APC are there. This is exclusively, in fact, the courts have heard that this is internal affairs of the party that even the courts cannot delve into. The court will not even look into it, except where there are situations like non-compliance with the constitution of that party, and the member of the party is complaining that his right has been infringed as a result of non-compliance with the constitution of the party. That is where the court will intervene. Ordinarily, it is internal affairs of a party. Now, where you have direct primaries, each party is doing its own. Each party is not bothered about what is happening in the other party, whether it is small or big. Mm-hmm. I do not see how that affects others. Talking about costs, even then, I do not see how it affects so much, because if you are conducting these direct primaries at ward level, and you can do it conveniently at ward level, all the members of the party at the ward level will gather at a certain location. It can be in a primary school, it can be anywhere. That is less expensive to my mind, as opposed to a situation where you have to gather over 2,000 or 4,000 people in Jos and host them in hotels. That would be more expensive. So I do not see how the expense comes in. Except even if you talk about staff of INEC participating in the various primaries. INEC staff are at the local government levels. And I'm sure that INEC staff are more than the wards of a particular local government. So if they are conducting the election, they can divide themselves and be at the wards and monitor that. And for God's sake, we've engaged in more wasteful ventures than ensuring that the will of the people is done as regards choosing of leaders. So it is best, if it means me spending more money, for us to choose the person we want and to choose credible people, than for one person to sit and choose someone that is loyal to him. Whether he's credible or not, he chooses him, and it is only the party that can field a candidate and sponsor a candidate that will contest election. So to my mind, the cost is, even if it were to be more, it is a beneficial thing, and so the cost cannot be too much. It's not too expensive to do direct primaries
and to get a good leader.
And to get good leaders, because when that happens, you will know that you are not just going to appease one person, but you have to attract the favor of the entire constituency for you to get candidature.
Thank you very much. Barrister Matthew, looking at this issue of electronic transmission of results, do you think we're actually ready?
Frankly, I can tell you categorically that we are not ready. The body language of our electoral empire from 2019 election to now does not portray that we are ready for that. Now, Even if you look at the manual accreditation that we embark on using electronic devices, it is also alternated by what? Manual registration. Sometimes we incur instances of failure of service and network challenges. What even I'm interested most is how we can delineate that from our judicial precedent. By the authority in Abubakar versus INEC 2020, it is now a settled law that server does not form part of our process, electoral process. This bill now seeks to remedy that situation, like when we had in the case of Amici versus Mejia, the Electoral Act 2020 came and make it cure the defect in that judicial precedent. We are now hoping that this electoral bill, Mr. President should assent it so that it will cure the defect in the decision in Abubakar versus INEC. And now let me tell you one thing with that decision. Another defect that came with that decision is that a person who has a result equivalent to secondary school certificate can contest. And also, the form E40, I think it's 44, like the one that have to do with the declaration of age.
Okay.
The statutory power of that form that says that if your name is Ahile Stephen Sahua, that names remain the same. But where you say your name is Ahile S. Sahua, they are two legal entities. That decision has now created that no, the difference between Muhammadu Buhari and Mohammed T. Buhari are two different things, are the same. So it has a tendency of having wrong people being identified as certain personalities. So these are some of the issues that we're expecting. And I think one other thing, which I believe, I remember Rhodes Vevo, the Supreme Court judge that just retired last year, in one of the judgments, he made a very sound judicial pronouncement.
Okay.
That is in the case of Udom versus Omuna 2016. He said, on the need to shift the onus of proving that election has been conducted regularly to INEC. So once you now shift the onus of the fact that election, it is a duty of INEC to show that election has been conducted properly, INEC will sit on its toes.
Yeah.
INEC will not collide with ruling parties to ensure that certain things are done against the other party. So he says that once you shift the onus of proof on INEC, INEC has now really become not only a good empire, but also a defender of its interests. But where you have INEC, now where you have the law shifting the onus of proving the election on the petitioner, and you have INEC, all INEC will come and do is to just say, let's look at, and they will adopt the written argument of the respondent. All these things are not good. So these are some of the issues that Nigerian electoral reform should look at as time goes on. I know Steve said something about the issue. No, we can have it that INEC is really understaffed. We can have some of those challenges, but I'm telling you categorically that ad hoc staff that INEC has been deployed has been very effective. And it's no longer a challenge of understaffing. The problem is the integrity of the system.
Thank you very much. Barrister Healy now. Why do you think our elections and the processes are fraught with manipulations and with chaos? You know, what are the causes?
Well, it was, I think, around 2003 that the issue of 2007. 2006, 2007, that the issue of do or die affair surfaced.
2003.
Yes. No, 2006, 2007, when Obasanjo was about to hand over. He was the one that said it's a do or die affair. And people now magnified it. That is how we have taken election to be, that it is a do or die affair. Because it is seen as a way of suddenly becoming rich. So once you win election, you have suddenly changed. You have metamorphosed from wherever position you were to that of affluence. And so everybody wants to be there, whether by hook or crook. even at the expense of other people's lives. It is only a few good Nigerians like Goodluck Jonathan that said his ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian, and he stood by it. But for most of the people, what they will be saying will be different from what they are acting. So it is because of the riches they are expecting that they will get into suddenly that makes people to make our electoral process to be fraught with irregularities and violence and chaos and all kinds of evil that you could think of, from charms to violence to mischief to all kinds of things. So to my mind, it's because of the perceived opportunity of becoming rich overnight that makes people see it as a do or die affair, and they take it at that and work on it.
Thank you very much. Barrister Machi, do you have anything to add on that?
Just to add on it, it is natural. It's an avenue. Politics is an avenue of competing interests, conflicting interests, as well as also what contrasting values. Now, once you have these instances in human relations, conflict is bound to happen. But the magnitude at which we are approaching it is what is not encouraging. Where you sacrifice human life in the interest, in your own selfish interest, not even national interest. I think that is unethical.
Thank you very much. Barrister Ahili, what do you think are the solutions?
The solution is one for the people to rise up and defend the democracy, the future of our country, the future of our children. It's for ourselves to rise up. It's unfortunate that if you go to our churches, for instance, if you go and begin to ask, say, how many people here are members of political parties, you will hardly find up to 10% of any average local assembly that are members of political parties. If you now say, okay, how many people are registered voters, you may be lucky to find up to 40% of the people who are registered voters that can vote and be voted in an election. Out of those 40, if you ask as elections are approaching, how many people are preparing to vote against all odds in this forthcoming election, you may be lucky to have maybe 20% of the people with voters' cards that will be willing to go and vote. So long as we are doing that, the selection process starts with the political parties. No matter how good you are, if you are not a member of a political party, you can never be a candidate. There are a few situations where they waive that membership, or else ordinarily for some parties, you must have been a member for at least 6 months. Some is more, based on the constitution of the party. So if you have not been a member of that party, there's no how you suddenly become a candidate in that party. Even though some parties make provision for waiver, you may be granted waiver. But before a waiver is granted, there may have been some underhand deals, underhand deals struck before they will come out to say, okay, even though you are not a member of our party, we are waiving it. So if the good people of Nigeria are not members of political parties, how can they affect the process? The bad ones will always be candidates. And so we'll be compelled to choose between those bad ones. So it is only when we are there. I experienced something, a situation where, as I said earlier, it is only a party that can sponsor a candidate. Parties, smaller parties that were coming up, we have Mr. A come to them and say, I'm interested in this House of Assembly seat for constituency A. They'll say, no problem, we don't have a candidate. Maybe they will collect 500,000 from the guy and give him a form to fill. After he goes away, another Mr. B comes and say, I'm interested in this same constituency. Maybe they will collect 600,000 from him and give him a form. Then eventually they will send the name of the person who paid higher to INEC. When the names are published, the other one will come to them and say, you assured me. They will be pretending as if they don't know how it happened, that the name of the other candidate is there other than his own name. Meanwhile, INEC does not go on the streets and pick names. They only deal with names that are sent to them, signed by the secretary of the party. So if that is the sponsorship, if the party did not forward the name of a candidate, it will not be there. But these are the kind of things they do. If we have Christians in positions as party officials, they won't be doing those kind of things. So these are the kind of situations we have on our hands. And so long as we continue like this and we end our own effort at prayer and allow crooks to go there and misbehave and do all sorts of things and mischief, we'll just be on a rocking chair, not making any progress. We'll just be in one position. So the first and most important thing is for us to actively participate in the electoral process. Up to the time of election, we'll go out and vote. We are members of the party. We decide who becomes our candidate. We'll go out and campaign and persuade people to see reason why it should be this one other than the other person. And then the election comes, we all go out to vote. When rigging occurs, the people who rig have some advantage. That is where they can rig. You cannot go to a place where you are in the minority and attempt to rig. They will kill you. So where they have advantage, maybe they already have the majority, then they can afford to rig. Where they got 50 votes, they can make it 500 votes. And things like that. So that is how it always happens. So until we rise up and participate actively, we cannot make any progress.
Thank you very much. Barrister Matthew, what other advices do you have for the citizenry as the 2023 election comes up, and even for the church, like he has said?
My advice for the church is to be more active.
Okay.
The church right in 2019, 2015 and 2019, there's a great remarkable improvement. The church, people were sensitized, and one other thing is churches and groups during their weekdays, week months, they should try to organize a sort of seminars, seminar on political enlightenment education. You don't need to say until it's organized by this DCC. For example, if women are having their Women Week, youth are having their Youth Week, let them have political symposium. Its main challenge is political literacy, is what we need most. In some of the areas we observed last year, I observed an election in 2019. I also did that in 2015, 2011. But one thing we noticed is that voter education, we should just teach people how to even thumbprint when voting. Some people don't know how to count. There are a lot of invalid votes coming. And we should teach people to eschew violence. Because the moment you are engaging in violence, in an area that you are leading, all the police officers on duty and INEC officers connive and say that there is violence, and it's a ground for the nullification of the vote of that election. That will affect what we are building. So people should be enlightened more on what to do. Where you find out that you are the one that is leading, try and make sure that peace is maintained. Even if you are protesting something, do it in such a way that is orderly. Because whoever is not interested in seeing your success can just declare to say there's a violence. And there was violence in that polling unit, and so he can declare that for cancellation of the result as a ground of violence. So that affected certain part of our communities during this election, and it's a systematic way of rigging our votes.
Thank you very much. We'll be going on a short break now. When we return, we'll continue our discussions. We'll speak a bit about the extradition of Abba Carey and some other issues. Thank you. So any other thing on elections again? You're welcome back. This is the Lifeline on Equa TV Africa. We have been discussing likely areas of reforms, towards the 2023 elections. The phone lines will be open now. You can call in to make your comments and contributions and also ask your questions. We have been discussing with Barrister Stephen Ahile in the studio and Barrister Matthew Godfrey. Barrister Ahile, what is extradition?
Extradition is the process of taking a person or sending a person from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. In this jurisdiction, in this sense, is from one country to another country, okay, to face criminal trial.
Okay.
If there is an allegation of crime against such a person, the one country will send that person on request from its country to the other country where the crime is alleged to have been committed for the sake of standing trial.
Okay. Barrister Matthew, what are the processes relating to extradition, or what are the conditions that must be met before a person is extradited to another country to face his trial?
Like Steve has said, one of the conditions is that it must be certain that the person seeking to be extradited has committed that offense.
Okay.
Now, after that, it will now go to the second requirement, which is the offense is an extraditable offense.
Okay.
That means there are certain offenses that they are not extraditable.
Okay.
So if it doesn't affect the interest of the country seeking the person to be extradited, it's not extraditable.
Mm-hmm.
Then it must be ensured that there is no double jeopardy.
Okay.
That means that the jurisdiction, the person seeking to be extradited, has not done anything regarding to his case. But where it has tried him, convict him, and sentence him, the other state cannot extradite him.
Okay.
Then we have what we call the duality of criminality, and then the returnability of the offender. This means that the offense for which we are now saying that he should be extradited, mm-hmm, it must also be reflected in the national law of the state seeking for him to be reflected. In other way, for example, in Abba Kyari, if we are saying Abba Kyari's case, if we are saying that Abba Kyari should be extradited to Nigeria, to US, mm-hmm, the offense, let's say drug trafficking must be an offense in Nigeria, and it must equally be an offense in the United States law.
Okay.
So these are some of the conditions. Then there are other conditions that are very also germane. You cannot extradite him to another state for torture. Mm-hmm. Where there is evidence that he's going there to be tortured, that is not extraditable. And also where there is what we call specialty requirement, that you are now taking him to a country that there is no specific law to, what are you trying him for is vague, so the law does not allow that. Mm-hmm. Torture where it's taken for political requirement. And the last condition that appears to play out is that you cannot extradite a person where there is an impending, ongoing trial, okay, by a state of origin, mm-hmm, on that person. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the conditions that you must meet to be satisfied that a person is qualified for extradition. Okay.
Sorry, you were talking about issue of double jeopardy, and now you have said if the person the trial is pending, he, yes, cannot be extradited, yes, so that he was able to complete the process of the judicial process here, yes, yes, in his own country of origin. Yes. Talking about issue of double jeopardy, where the country of origin does not seem to have tried the matter, will I say, the trial was done, but the other country wishing that that person be extradited, seems to see that the trial was, it was not satisfied, and the trial was fraught maybe with some irregularities, or the offenses for which he was tried were not conclusive. Maybe there are different crimes, and he was only tried for 1 or 2, and then the remaining 3 issues were not tried. Can that, still allow him to be extradited?
That cannot qualify as a full extradition condition.
Okay.
Because in application for extradition condition, the offense, the country requesting for the offender to be extradited must attach the warrant of his arrest.
Okay.
And in the warrant of his arrest, the offenses upon which he's charged are spelled out.
Okay.
Now, apart from that also, you look at the issue of the certificate of conviction. So if they are now saying that we have convicted Kashamu in US, but he has fled to Nigeria, so this is a certificate. So you have nothing done to take him back to US. If you are saying that this is our charges against Abba Kyari, the receiving state, that is, for example, Nigeria, must try him based on terms that are coterminous, terms that are the same with those specified in the warrant of charges. Why that is not done, the sending state also has a right to challenge that, and they can do that sometime maybe by appealing. They can call it appeal through their maybe foreign solicitor, or maybe their embassy, the legal service of the embassy. They can call it challenge that this is not what we it's not satisfactory. These are some of the conditions that are applicable. And I think the issue of double jeopardy, why double jeopardy is not always, because under the International Convention or International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, a double jeopardy is one of the grounds that an accused person or a convict enjoy. So before we have it in Nigerian Constitution, it's an international norm of international practices that is applicable. So you cannot try a person twice for one offense.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Barrister Ahili. How does this whole issue of extradition relate to Abba Kyari's case and the present, issues of drug trafficking, which was just released by NDLEA?
Well, before then, let me say 2 things too, in addition to what he said.
Okay.
One of the conditions for extradition is that the 2 countries must have an arrangement of extradition. So it's not that they must be in a relationship. There must be an existing relationship where they know that this can be done. A person can be extradited from this country to the other country and vice versa. Yes. And then the other aspect of double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is not only in conviction, it is actually in trial, that a full trial has been done. It could have ended in conviction and sentence. It could have ended in acquittal.
Okay.
If a person has been tried and acquitted, then he cannot be tried again for the same offense. It is either ought refuse acquit or ought refuse convict, whether he has been acquitted or convicted, so long as he has been tried, a full-fledged trial from beginning to the end, then he cannot go through it for the second time.
Okay.
Yeah. So in relation to Abba Kyari's case, there's an allegation, and so far as this allegation is concerned, as Matthew mentioned earlier, this has not gone through trial. Charges have not been filed against him. Charges have not been preferred against Kyari, so long as this issue is concerned. So if the other conditions are met, it will be a proper case to extradite him.
Okay.
Because these are offenses that are known both to Nigeria and the US. Trial has not been done, and so if the other conditions are fulfilled, he could be extradited for trial in the requesting state.
Okay. Thank you very much, Barrister Matthew. I'm aware that the United States government had requested for his extradition since sometime last year, and but I don't know, for whatever reasons he has not been extradited, and now he has, you know, been accused of dealing in drugs. Do you think that this trend and this not extraditing him will affect our relations with the United States, and even, you know, affect the view of the world generally about how we are handling crime and issues in Nigeria?
In fact, straight away it will. Now, before delving into that, I would like to just make some addition.
Okay.
With respect to the legal basis, okay, or the legal condition for existence of extradition. In Nigeria, the Extradition Act provides for two systems of state parties when it comes to extradition.
Okay.
The first one, under Section 1, is what we call the Commonwealth state parties. Now, in 1933, when Nigeria was not given back as an independent state, the British colony signed an extradition treaty with United States of America and all other British protectorates.
Okay.
So that also was given legal backing by Yakubu Gowon in 1967. So it has now been codified into our law.
Okay.
Goodluck Jonathan modified it in 2014. So as far as that law is concerned, even there is no arrangement, no need for arrangement. Once it's an offense between a Nigerian and Ghanaian, they have a legal obligation of returning that person to be tried. Now we have the second one that is an issue which has to do with state parties, where Nigerian government in capacity after 1960 enter into a legal contract with high contracting party. They can now take that to be a legal arrangement or agreement under the international law of treaties. Now, to bring in some of these issues, the Abba Kyari saga must get the facts to some extent for clarity. One, the time last year that US sent a warrant for arrest of Abba Kyari and his surrender to their jurisdiction, the offense that were charged was in relation to the case of Hush Puppy. So which is what fraudulent offenses, that is against the Patriotic Act of US, which is against United States citizens. Now, you situate that also under the current arrest. The current arrest has nothing to do with the US, this thing like the previous one. The current arrest now is with respect to cocaine that is issue, and the arrest by the cocaine cartel involve three parties: Brazilian citizen, Ethiopian citizen, and United States again. I get to my point. Now, with the involvement of United States now, Brazil and Ethiopia, even Nigeria has to be careful, because what you are now trying to do as you want to challenge, what are you charging Abba Kyari? Are you charging Abba Kyari for drugs? American issue was that we are asking you bring Abba Kyari to face his conspiracy with Hush Puppy. So now if you are charging him for second offense now, it does not satisfy one of the requirements upon which the charge sheet, let me use that word, was attached in the extradition request. So what is the effect of that? The Nigerian government trying to, day before yesterday, arresting, what are they calling him, Abba Kyari, initiating investigation and other processes. Let me tell you, all these things, they are trying to prove one of the conditions, satisfy one of the conditions that an impending or ongoing trial is taking place in the municipal jurisdiction of Abba Kyari, so that to serve as an exemption. But under international law, you cannot invoke your municipal law, that is your national law, to deal from respecting international treaties. So once Nigeria have done that, it will really affect Nigerian foreign policy. It will really affect the worldview of Nigeria in the Committee of Nations. It will also affect the integrity index of Nigeria. Let me tell you one thing. If you study the corruption perception index in Nigeria from 2015 to 2016, I have done that, and I can tell you, Incidentally, President Buhari, that we've been admiring as a crusader and an apostle, quote and unquote, of anti-corruption, things got worse under him compared to Goodluck regime. The perception index in Nigeria is soaring to the detriment of our national integrity globally. So you can now, this will further add to our perception index, corruption perception index. Now, apart from that, our index on rule of law will not be observed.
That's true.
Because this same man that was asked to step aside, he was there, despite being suspended, he was there also making things to matter. And this is tampering with evidence. So how can you say that there's transparency? So it will really, really cast a slur on the image of Nigeria as far as international relations is concerned.
Barrister Ahile, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, yeah, I will only add that it is important for the present government. By the way, anti-corruption was one of their campaign promises. And if we are going down the drain, as far as corruption is concerned, and these issues are coming up again, it will be a test for them. It's left for them to either pass or fail. They could choose to extradite him and pass the test, or refuse to do that and fail the test. That's the only thing I'll add.
Okay. From all of this, how will you say the judicial processes have either thrived or have failed?
Judicial processes will respect, let me make one comment with respect to extradition when it comes to judicial processes. Extradition is also one of the sui generis cases we have. A case is said to be sui generis when it is given a special consideration by court of law. It does not follow the regular process of court of law. One of the features of a case that is said to be sui generis is that it is time limit. Court give its priority. That is why you see in election petition, they will give you 180 days. You come to fundamental rights enforcement procedure, it is always in the court of the judge. The court list, they don't take longer dates, except in some court that we can't explain why. So extradition matters are meant to be what? Expeditiously tried. Now, the judiciary also has helped a lot in that. One of the areas that judiciary has helped is in shaping the jurisprudence behind extradition. Prior to the 1999 Constitution, like I said, under the extradition treaty, the jurisdiction of the court, the Extradition Act clearly said that only magistrate can try extradition. But that conflicts with Section 241 of the 1999 Constitution, where in extradition is a matter that is exclusively reserved for Federal High Court. So the court was able to settle that so that they can have a smooth sale. So now all extradition matters are going to Federal High Court. Now there are certain processes also with that are involving extradition. When it comes to the issue of extradition, as far as the law is concerned, an application can be made, and compliance with the proceedings and certain vital documents like the requesting order, certificate of conviction or warrant, and the identity of the accused person or the suspect or whoever may be, all of this must be particularized. And once a judgment is given that a particular accused person should be surrendered, he must be surrendered within 15 days after the service. So the judiciary has said a lot. There was an argument on whether that 15 days could be below 15 days or after 15 days. Court held that it must be after 15 days, within 15 days. So these are some of the issues. And also, in federal, a lot of Federal High Court judge cases, Nigerian judges are cooperative. The judiciary has been cooperative. We are able to send Mustafa, the one that was one time alleged to have been a sponsor of Al-Qaeda, a sponsor of Al-Qaeda, I think in Lagos or this thing, Bohan somebody. The Federal High Court was able to grant an order, surrender him for extradition to be tried. Okay, so you find out some of those things have been done, we've been doing it. So what we're expecting, like Ahile said, is that this is opportunity for
the government
to wash itself. And I think when it comes to the judiciary, the Attorney General of the Federation has a role to play. He is the one that can decide. He has two, normally once an extradition process is brought, he has two approaches. First, he can decide to say he's not extraditing, and that ends the matter.
Okay.
So with respect to Hush Puppy case today, if Malami says that I am not instituting an action for extradition, that remains the law and nothing can be done. The second position is that where he says that I want to extradite and institute an action for the surrender of Hush Puppy to United States of America, he followed the process. Supply application, identity of the accused, stating the warrant of arrest, the particular of warrant of arrest, and all the legal procedures, the relevant documents, and then you move the motion, and then the court can grant it. Where the court grant it, you surrender it to him. So these are some of the issues that are normally required in the role of judiciary and the role of Attorney General.
Okay. Thank you very much. Barrister Haley, what would be your final words as we round up the show?
Okay, my final words are that Nigeria is our only country, and we cannot one day wake up to be citizens of another country. Whatever we make of it is what it's going to be. So in matters like this, the federal government and all concerned should do that which is in the best interest of the nation. It's not minding who is involved, and that will move us forward and take us to the real next level that we desire, and not the kind of situation we found ourselves now.
Thank you very much. Barrister Matthew?
I endorse the last word of Ahili.
Thank you very much. This is the much we can take on the show this evening. I would advise that we should rise up and look forward to the 2023 election with optimism and participate actively, even as a church and as individuals. We'll be back next week, same time on the show for the program. Thank you very much.